Good morning, everyone. This is a question answer session. There are certain questions. The first question is I had said knowledge leads to awakening. It is very strange and difficult as well for an awakened one to speak to the general people. The level of understanding differs from person to person. An awakened one operates, he is in a different state of innerness, and you are in your. In order to give the message is the content. For instance, there are two things, container and content. We do not call a container where tea is served by any other name but teacup. But when we are serving coffee, we use the term coffee mug. In the same way, there are different types of cups which are being used for serving alcohol. Champagne cups are different quality, different shape. Wine is a different shape. So on and so forth. These are specifics. But the tea can be served in a coffee mug, or the coffee can be served in a tea mug. The container where we serve the water is known as water goblet. When I am speaking to you, my emphasis is on the message. So, whichever container is available nearby, I use that to serve you. My emphasis is not on the container so much, but you are stuck in the container. When my children come and we have to serve the non-alcoholic wine, I cannot serve it in ordinary cup to them. If it is wine, it has to be served in wine cups. If it is a champagne, it has to be served in champagne cup. It is good the elegance remains. So when I said knowledge leads to awakening, it is right. Many times someone comes to you and asks, give your explanation to illumine me. It is a specific word, but we use it. When you enter into a particular class, your objective is to graduate from there in order to continue your studies. So there is an instructor. He gives you the lessons on a day-to-day basis, tests you. Each time when he comes, he speaks on a particular topic you are ignorant about, you do not know about it. He gives the lecture. That lecture changes your level of understanding. So you can say knowledge, he has given you a knowledge through the medium of lecture, and that lecture and the content of that has changed your level of understanding, and this goes on up to a certain limit. So you can say knowledge leads to relative awakening. Relative awakening. And then a moment comes in when this awakening becomes total. There is nothing external coming into you. No lecture is being given. In the same way, when you come to a master, you ask a question. He looks at your innerness. He changes the format of the question, because he do not want to infuse you with knowledge. Instead, the other aspect, he wants your process of awakening to continue. So he reformats the question and answers the questioning mind. This is the process that leads to ultimately the ultimate awakening. So this is where the problem comes in. There had been a writer, William Shakespeare, who was very intelligent enough and versatile in the use of the words. By choice of the words, he would create a particular effect that he wants to create. In Julius Caesar, there is an event the next day. Julius Caesar is murdered. The night before, there is fear. In order to show that, he chooses the words in the sentence in such a way that it creates the hissing sound. Hissing is the sound created by snakes. Snakes is a symbol of fear. So to show the fear, he used a snake and the sound of the snake and created that sound through the selection of the words. When you really read that sentence, is like a hissing coming through as you speak. Jalaluddin Rumi is also another versatile. It's not that he is making an effort to write it. It is happening spontaneously through him. He just goes on speaking, words forming, because he is in a totally different realm of knowing. And when the words overflow, it gives the meaning. And now when you analyze the writings of Jalaluddin Rumi, you will find he is versatile. He is versatile in such a way that he uses the same word to give a different meaning. But it is natural and spontaneous for him. Nanak did not speak, did not compose anything. And whenever anyone asks a question, he has two disciples, Bala and Mardana. One was Hindu and the other was Muslim. He will immediately say, start the music. As he starts the music, Nanak will start singing. Whatsoever Nanak gave the message, it is in the form of singing. and this singing was spontaneous. If you forget about the words or the message of Osho, there is a tremendous joy just watching him, responding to the questions asked by Manisha or anyone else for that matter. How he responds to it. There is a beauty in that. And if you start dissolving in that beauty, you are actually drinking the master. You are not bothered about the knowledge. You are not at all bothered what he is saying. Just drowning in his presence that he has created at that moment. That will transform you. So knowledge is always that leads to relative awakening. Imagine you are in a class, and when you graduate from standard 1, then you go to standard 2, and so on and so forth. Then a day comes when you graduate. Right now you are graduating from one class to another, but remaining within the same faculty, same university. But when you finish your degree of bachelor's in science or arts or any other field, then you have graduated from that particular university to enter into another field. So it is relative and it keeps on changing. Relative means that keeps on changing. It is like a step. You move from one step to another and so on and so forth until you reach the last ladder, and after that you have to reach the rooftop. So this is how it happens. Do not remain stuck in the words. There are people who get stuck in the words and they remain in that quagmire throughout their lives. They have the capacity to go beyond the words, but they do not. Instead, they remain stuck in the words. So this was the first question in relation to when I said knowledge leads to awakening. The another question is, again the person gets lost into the words. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? As such, when you look into dictionary, the two words seem to be synonymous. Nanak says there is no end to all this. In the realm of knowledge or understanding, there is tremendous awakening. When you are listening to a lecturer giving a lecture in a classroom, and when you are listening to his lecture, certainly your level of understanding changes. It gives you a new vision to look at the things. But when you are listening to a master, the contents are there, the container is there, but along with that, his energy field, the aura of awakening that surrounds you, that is there. A moment comes in when you do not need even the scriptures. I was asked this question by the questionnaire. Yesterday I spoke And then today I decided, because it was a little difficult to take the audio and make it available. And writing takes a much longer time than speaking. So I am speaking to you. It is emanating out of the inner reservoir which is now open. I do not need to go to the scripture or anything else. Therefore it is said, knowledge is awakening. The very nature, when you look at the Hindu scriptures, it has many levels of understanding. When you go to a teacher, let me take an example from one of your scriptures, Mahabharata. The story of the Mahabharata, that Pandav and the Kaurav princes were sent to the teacher Dronacharya. The master is one. The students have different level of understanding, and they excel differently. Arjun was the only one who became the excelled in the field of archery, whereas others choose the particular art of warfare according to their own capacity. When you look at the scriptures, their entire structure or knowledge, it is like a ladder, or you can say a spiral staircase. When you stand up at the ground level, you get a totally different view of the things that are happening at that level. Now you go up at a higher level. You want to see what is going on the street level. You tiptoe to see what is going on, but you cannot see. Then suddenly you rush to the terrace, and from there you look at the things going on the street level, and you get a clearer view. So as you move the spiral staircase, you come to the same point, but instead of being in a horizontal straight line, you are elevated to a different level. And from there, when you look at the event taking place on the street level, looks different. It gives you a totally different view to you. And when you reach the rooftop, you get a totally different view. And when a particular event is to be reported or telecast, the television crew have a mobile system that it can move, come closer to you. It can go higher depending on what it needs to capture. Meera, the mystical poet, have tried to capture this in a beautiful composition. She says, "Uchi chad chad panth niharun." Uchi chad chad panth niharun. I have climbed to different levels of consciousness. Meera uses the word consciousness. Now you will read this line. You may not be affected by it. When I'll read, Unchi chad chad panth niharun, she complains, I have tried to understand you, but I have failed. As my level of understanding changed, I get a totally different vision, and this continues. How does the level of understanding changes? You are a 7-layer staircase, or these can be related to your psycho centers. In the beginning, when you enter the university or a particular discipline, you are unfamiliar about that discipline. The only capability that you have now, you are ready to enter, you have completed, you have qualified to enter into that particular discipline. You are at Mooladhara, the earth center. From there, when you look at the world and anything, you will find the scripture has a different meaning. My words have a different meaning. When you reach to Swadhisthana, the water center, your vision changes. When you reach to the solar plexus, you get a different vision. When you reach to the heart center, you get another vision of the same situation or circumstance. So on and so forth, until you reach the 1000 petal center or Sahasrar. From there, beyond that, there is no other level, no other realm. That is the ultimate. But before that, all that is happening is relative. It is not truth. It is relative to that particular plane. This is what happens when you go in the company of the Master. Your emphasis should be movement from one level of understanding to another. So when you read Bhagavad Gita, it gives a different meaning. Mahatma Gandhi finds a totally different he was, and that too according to his own innerness. He is a propagator of non-violence. So he finds, but Bhagavad Gita propagates violence, the war. So he says that Bhagavad Gita did not take place, instead it happens within the mind. Another person, a Maharashtrian, he was a karma yogi. He was working in a newspaper. So it is his responsibility to remain in the work for a certain period of time. The news came in that his wife passed away. He did not go because he was a karma yogi. Shankar sees in Bhagavad Gita another meaning. Some sees an embodiment of manifestation of love, others. That is why there are so many techniques explained to Arjuna, and through Arjuna, Krishna explains the vastness. Whatsoever appeals to you, follow that and you will ultimately reach to me. When you are in the company of the Master, Master is the mystical wine. He is not the words. Although he uses words, he is not the physical being, instead he is a presence. He is constantly creating a wine. बहुत कड़वी है मैं इस साकी की, बहुत कड़वी है मैं इस साकी की, रंग लाएगी गर सांसों में उतर आने दो, रंग लाएगी गर सांसों में उतर आने दो. Indeed, bitter is the mystical wine of this brewer. Allow a few drops of it to enter your being. there will be a transformation. You will not remain the same. रंग लाएगी गर सांसों में उतर आने दो. If you allow this wine, this mystical wine, to enter into you, become part of your breath. Breath is the life force. It certainly will transform you. You have to listen to the Master, not through the mind, but through the faculty of the heart. If you are listening to the Master through mind, you are going into the realm of knowledge. And when you are listening to Him through the heart, you are moving in the dimension of wisdom. The difference is when you hear something through the mind, it leads to knowledge, memory. And when you are listening to Him through the heart, is love affair. Then it leads to wisdom. I used to speak through the radio programs and so on different topics. So people who were connected to Sikh religion, whenever I am speaking on Nanak, they will listen to it. When I am speaking on another path, people connected with that, they will listen to it. And there were certain drunkards. To them it never mattered what I am speaking on. To them what really mattered? That I am there and I am speaking. It does not matter what I was speaking on, the content, the topic, the subject matter was not important to them. What was the meaning? That they are spending a few moments with a presence, with an awakening, and that is what really mattered to them. So be connected to the Master through the heart. You will lead you into wisdom. And if you look into the dictionary, you will see the difference. If you use the words in a dictionary meaning, it will bark at you. The words, there are 26 letters in alphabet, different combination and permutation of those words. Those letters make a word. The same words are used in different disciplines, be it chemistry, biochemistry, physics, economics, sociology, or anything else. On a simple basis that you know English language, you cannot understand the discipline of physics if you are a man of literature. Because physics has its own language. The words that are used, when the same word is used in physics, it carries a different meaning than in chemistry or literature or mathematics. You must be familiar with the discipline. You must be familiar with the person whom you are listening to. If you are a student of English literature and you go into the classroom of a professor of physics, you will not be able to understand, although the medium that he is using is English medium. Simply because you know English, you cannot understand the discipline of physics. The lecture on physics, because your periscope through which you understand is that of English literature. The same word has a different meaning in literature, and communicates you different meaning than it will do in other disciplines. So this is the reason that it happens, but we cannot say anything. There are people who come in my company, some are curious. They come to gather the information. When the radio program began many decades ago, so I had asked my secretary to prepare the script, type it and make it available to the people whosoever wants to come. So one day it happened, I asked one person, I said, did you get the script of the last program? He said, yes, I got it and I used it. I said, what do you mean? He said, I used it in one of my the religious talks. I said, after that, what you do? He said, just so I put away, that was not relevant because the talk was very important and I used it. So what he is using, but that will not change his level of understanding. Another example, I can go on and on giving you the examples. You have a toolbox. The same toolbox is used to fix different kind of cars. The same toolbox with there are certain basic tools that are used everywhere. The same jack will be used in changing the tire of a Mercedes-Benz or BMW or Corolla or any other vehicle. But the tools do not change. Words are the tools that are being used. So do not get lost in the quagmire of the words. Let your emphasis be on the content. It is the content that can transform you, not the container. Container looks good, but it is the content that transforms you. This was a short session to explain certain questions. I think, is there any other question? What is this first question? I cannot understand.
It's about anatta.
Okay, I had spoken on Anhadnad. The person asked question, what is Anhadnad? Nad means sound. Anhad means that which is uncreated. Every sound is created by friction. Musician vibrates the strings of a stringed instrument. Out of that friction between the fingers of the musician and the strings, a sound is created. That sound is pleasant. If the instruments are tuned, it will be pleasant. Otherwise, it will be out of tune. Water falls on the rock. A sound is created. We call the sound of the waterfall. The bird chirps, the child cries. All these are sounds created by friction. And you keep on hearing that. A moment comes in, yet still there is a sound which nobody is creating. But because of your noise, you are not capable of listening to that sound. The moment one attains to awakening or enlightenment, he begins to hear that sound which is uncreated. Nanak is the one who used the word anadnad. The nad, the sound which is not created by anything, and that is the pulse of the cosmos, the very cause of the existence. There is an incident about a Tibetan Buddhist monk, Marpa. After he became enlightened, he was hearing this sound, and he continued to hear that sound. It happened when it was time for him to leave the world. His disciples were sitting around him, and they were listening to the sound of Om emitting out of every part of the body. His being. Marpa was hearing throughout his life, and he was getting intoxicated. But in the last moment, when a master is entering into Alam-e-Ghaib, tremendous energy is released. It can be in the form of sound. Sound is also energy, or in any other form. And that time, the other disciples were also begin to listen to it, and they were intoxicated. This something that Marpa was hearing since the awakening, the disciples were hearing in the last moment when he gave the example. When Naqshbandi Sheikh Sufi Ramchandra Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu was his last moment, I will not go into the details of it. At that moment, when his last moment, he wanted to give the experience how one should enter into Alam-e-Ghaib. Enter into death willingly. At that moment, in the room, no one was allowed except certain people. One was his son, Mahatma Jagmohan Narayan. Then his spiritual inheritor, the next sheikh in the Naqshbandi Tariqat, his nephew, Sufi Brij Mohan Lal, his younger brother, Raghuvar Dayal, his uncle master, Sheikh Abdul Ghani Khan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, because his master, Sheikh Fazl Ahmad Khan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, was no more in the physical form. Along with that, there was the concert of Brij Mohan Lal, Sufi Shakuntala Devi, his wife Brij Rani, and no one else were allowed, as far as I see. And he went on explaining, now the life force is receded from the toes. The energy is moving from the toes. It has reached to the ankle. The part below the ankle is lifeless. And then he keep on narrating that. He said, now it has reached to the groin, and so on and so forth, until it reached heart center, and he gave on giving the experience to those how one should enter into Alam-e-Ghaib or enter death knowingly, with total awareness. He is entering into a different kind of a rhythm, different kind of a nad. Marpa experienced this, gave his disciples the experience in the form of a nad. And the moment the life force came out in the form of light, everyone in the room for a moment, their vision was blocked. I was given this experience through my grandmother, Sufi Shakuntala Devi, and also when I carried my awareness into that moment. If you are awakened, you can carry to that moment, relive that moment, because it is a part of your awakening. You are a part of the cosmos, and all these experiences are stored in that cosmic realm. You can enter into that. From the forehead of Lalaji Razillah Talaunu, a glow of light in the form of light, the life force, revealed, emerged, and disappeared in the thin air. All those who were present, out of the grace of Naqshbandi Ramchandra Razillah Talaunu, they were given that experience. When the life force leaves the body, whichever part it leaves from the body, it also depends on your own inner growth. Sometimes it has been found that there is a hole in a particular part. When it leaves from Sahasrar, suddenly you will find as if something has sunk and there has become an opening. In mysterious ways, it happens. So Anhad Nad means that sound which is not created by any friction. Instead, it is the very cause of the existence, the very pulse. You are alive, there is a pulse, there is a heartbeat. And where you will feel the pulse, an expert will feel the pulse in any part of the body. You will not feel the pulse even at your heart because there is a noise. He can feel the pulse in any part of the body. And this is what happens. The awakened one can experience the pulse of the cosmos anywhere, in any part of the body, because his body is a replica of the entire existence. Someone has written a beautiful Hindi lines. The drop is a drop. The moment drop realizes that I am not drop, instead I am water. Drop, what it is composed of a space and then there is something inside, a container and content. The moment drop realizes that I am not drop, instead I am water, it becomes oceanic. This is movement from fana to baka according to Sufis. You realize that you are a part of the cosmos. You are immediately transformed. जिस क्षण बूंद ये अनुभव करती है कि मैं बूंद नहीं, पानी हूं, वो सागर में हो जाती है. The moment drop realizes I am not a drop anymore, Instead, I am the content. I am that which overflows within. It becomes oceanic. And that very moment you start hearing that upper sound which is not created, that is Anhadnath. You may ask 1,001 questions, but you will not get that experience. Experience comes in the company of an awakened one. He transfers his energy field, he gives you his presence, he gives you his being. He gives you the mystical wine that he is, the mystical wine that he creates. Is there any more question? So this is the end of this morning's question-answer session. Thank you for joining. Take care and do have a pleasant day until another session.